Okay, so I think we'll start. Tusitumia more time. So hello everyone, welcome kwa meeting ya leo. Okay, first of all ni apologies sababu we're supposed to have this meeting jana, but due to some circumstances ili tumepostpone. But all is well na I hope mko poa. So last week tulipitia loops, some introduction to functions, but I think itakuwa poa nikianza functions leo because right now ni kama tumeanza kutoka from the basics. Now we are going to some more advanced stuff. Si ngumu but it's hatuko basics. So I start functions tena, then we proceed from there. So ukiwa na swali you can interrupt me, utume kwa chat and nitajibu. We are also live on YouTube. So if you have your questions on YouTube, you can ask then I will check from time to time. Okay. So we said functions, they are reusable block of code that perform a specific task. Kidogo. Yeah. Nona, some people are having trouble joining the meeting. So next time we'll use Google Meet. Let me the link to YouTube. Naweza nisaidia kushare hii link kwa group ndio in case mtu ako na issue ya kujoin meeting afuatilia YouTube. As I was saying, functions are reusable block of code that perform a specific task. So from the start tumekuwa tukiandika code, but that code is not reusable, as in hauwezi tumia tena. If you wanted to implement the same functionality, ilibidi ukuwe umerewrite tena. So functions inakam to solve that problem in that you can create a functionality and you can reuse it anytime that you want. So this one inasaidia kuhelp kuavoid repetition, as in usishinde ukijirudia, and also reusability. You can use a function in more places than one. Na pia it is easier to fix. So we said that kuna function declaration. Hapa ndio una declare function yako ni gani na inafanya nini. So the syntax ni fun. Hapa una define, unasema unaandika a function, then you give the name of the function. Custom name ni jina yote unataka kuipea. A good thing inakuanga when you are giving a function name, it should be descriptive of what the function is doing. So ni kama inakuelezea function inafanya nini. So here ukiangalia unaweza jua tu directly this function is supposed to say hi, and that's what it will do. Hello. So tukirun this code right now haitafanya kitu because we have declared the function but hatujaisema ati tuitumie. Calling a function ni kusema tunataka kutumia hii block of code. So the way you call a function, you just you write the name. Say hi and you'll call the function. Na this piece of yenye iko hapa ndani ndio itakuwa executed, ndio imekuwa printed. Then you can make this function even more usable by giving it an input. So as you can see kwa hii image, functions ni something that takes an input alafu inafanya some calculation. Okay, for this purpose ni ina run this block of code yenye iko ndani yake. So inachukua input, ina run the block of code yenye iko ndani yake, then it can give you an output. So we'll make this more advanced. So tuseme function ya say hi inaweza take a name. So for this one, the topic itakuwa function parameters. You can take a name. Tumesema function tunazipea input. And how do you give a function an input? We give them using parameters. So parameters zinakuanga ndani ya hizi brackets and usually state the name of the parameter. Ni variable too. So a name and its type. So name is string and its type. Then after that, you can now write the block of code. So tuseme print ln hello. No. And now this function inaweza take an input. So ukikuja call the function again, now we give it the input. So maybe naweza sema Eric. So imechukua an input alafu run this code. So say hi. The input was Eric, which is the name, and it's a string. Lazima specify the type ya nini input yako. Hello Eric. Then another thing for functions zinakuanga na return type. So for this function yetu hapa, it does not return anything. It does not give you an output. But functions typically you can use them to give you an output for something. So I will write a different function ya kucalculate. Okay. Let's say add numbers. And itachukua two numbers, which is a and an integer, that is the parameter, and it will take another number b, also an integer. Then you can see a function you can take even more than one parameter. Hapa tulitumia moja, but here there are two. You can take more than one parameters. And now define the return type. This is a function that returns output. So the return type will be an integer. So the input will be these two numbers, and then the output will be the integer. And then now we're going to write the block of code. So we can say the sum a plus b. That is a block of code. And now you have to write the return type. Now we are defining the output now. It will return the sum, which is an integer. Another integer with another integer to return. So sum is the output of the function. So we can now run add numbers. We give it two numbers. It will be 8 and 2. So one thing you'll note, if you run this, it will not be printed. Oh, it has printed. Okay, if it was the other Kotlin file, it will not be printed because OJ print specifically. Notebook when a print on your, you don't even have to write print, it will print on your own. But you can now give this value to another variable. We say the var output is equals to add numbers. And then now we can print the output. So if you were to do the same thing now here, let's see what it will do. It will print only once. So the first print ilikuwa ile iko hapa ndani. Since this code ilikuwa executed, obviously ita print. But tukijaribu kuprint hii the greeting, it will not, this function has not returned anything. So the value of greeting, it is a Kotlin unit, which is a nini, ni structure ya function yani. So nika kusema greeting imepewa value yake ni function but not the output. Ukiangalia hapa hivi iko na return type, so this function itakuwa run, and then the return type which is sum itakuwa returned to this value output. So hii output itareturniwa the sum, and that's how you can print it. Let me check if kuna swali. Okay. If hakuna swali, then I'll proceed. Then hapa umeona we have been returning only value, but functions can also return like two values, and I will give an example. What am I saying? Okay. So hapa to create a function that will return the minimum value and the maximum value in a list of numbers. So the parameters, we are going to say it's numbers, and the type is a list. It's a list of numbers which are integers. And then now you can say find the minimum and the maximum. So okay, I think that's more advanced. Let me give another example. So let's say you're creating a function and to pair the nini, it will give us the sum and the product of two numbers. Then we say it's A, an integer, and then B, also an integer. And then now you want to return the variable which is the sum, A plus, then the product, A times B. Now we're supposed to return these two values. So how to do that? You say you specify the return type, and the return type will be a pair, like two values. Then it will be a pair, since the sum is an integer and another integer, the product integer. Then now when to return, you will return a pair of the sum, and the product. So now when you come to get to call the function, you say the variable, you say the sum, and then the product is equals to, you call the function now calculate 10 and 10. So this function itarudisha two values, the sum and the product. But how do you get these two values? You create this, I think it's called a tuple. That it's like getting destructuring two values from a return type. So you'll get the sum from the return type and then the product from the return. So now you can print. Yeah, you can see the function was able to values. 10 plus 20, 10 times 10 is 100. Is there a question, Apple? Okay, then proceed. Then there is another thing for the arguments. You can have default arguments and the named arguments. So let me use this example. So the first thing we are doing is I'll show you default arguments. Default arguments is, so when unasema arguments zako, this one lazima the user specify an input. But what happens if you do not specify an input? So let's say we remove that name. Already, as you can see, iko highlighted. Delete this one. Already you can see iko highlighted. Kotlin is able to realize hapa umesema this one must have an input, and when you're calling the function hujapeana any input. So it has printed hello only, but in other the main Kotlin file, it will give you an error. So it's not safe to do this because now your code might have some errors. So the thing you can do will pass argument. That is, you can say in this name input, if the user had to provide a name, then you can default to use this one. You can say hello, now it will be student. This will be the default value of name. So if I call this function without providing an argument, already you can see the error imetoka. If I call it without providing an argument, it will print hello student. But I pass my own argument. Now the default value will be overridden and now it will print hello Eric. So this is a safe way to do it, but si lazima. It depends on your situation yenye uko. Then another thing to make it clear, maybe when someone is reading your code, inaweza kuwa ni nini na happen, you can use something we call named arguments. Confusing with Python. Named arguments. So basically ni kitu tu rahisi. When you're calling the function, when you give the arguments, you write their name and yeah. So at least mtu akikuja kusoma anaweza jua ni you're calling the say hi function and the variable you're passing is the name. Yeah, nothing big. Okay. Kuna swali hadi hapo? Okay, acha niendelee. Then we have single expression functions. So basically, these are simple functions that they do not have too much implementation code. So instead of writing this function in 3 lines, you can have it in a simple expression in a way that you can do the same thing but in 1 line. So you can say function, yeah, say hi. It will take a name, which is a string, and now instead of opening the brackets, unasema tu equals, then supposed to, now what is it supposed to do? It's supposed to print hello, to print the name. Yeah. Now unatumia simple expression functions if this body ya code yako it's not too long, as in inaweza kuwa nini written in 1 line, but if you have a long function then ni recommended tutumie the brackets. So now tukicall say hi, step ya the nini, yeah, it will still work. So here ni kufanya tu code yako isikuwe refu sana. Instead of 3 lines, it has work in 1 line. Yeah, that is all about single expression functions. The other thing, tunasema that hapa kwa parameters, okay, hizi arguments zenye tuna these parameters hapa tunakuwa tunajua that it will only take two parameters, but what happens if haujui function yako inafaa kuchukua nini ngapi, like what will you do now? So what you do, kuna word in Kotlin inaitwa var so you use this var keyword when you don't know how many arguments your function will take. So we can say that you want to create a function here now to say hello to maybe a list of student names. So ni function to the same function that say hi, but now instead of saying a name, we don't know how many names will be provided, so we'll use var arg, and then now we specify the variable which is names, and it will be, maybe we'll say string, a string. And now the same thing, go print a name. So now when you're coming to call the function, unasema to say hi, maybe say Eric Newton Mary, and itatumia hizo nini zote. Okay, so hapa kuna error. So you don't know how many arguments zitapeanwa, so what you have to do ni create like a for loop yenye ita go through the arguments zenye zitapeanwa. So you'll say a for loop like for name in names, you print the name now. So since hizi zilikuwa tatu, you have to loop through them, ndio maana imeleta error. So itachukua Eric ya kwa print, then Newton and then Mary. So it doesn't matter how many nini you'll use, how many variables you'll use, and pia ukitumia moja it will still work. Yeah. Kuna swali? Okay, we can proceed to the next one basi. This one hatuzitumiangi sana, but it's good to know that iko. Okay, for beginners hautaitumia sana, but ni poa tu kujua iko. We call them inline functions. So inline functions, what they are. Okay, if I show you this function, yes. If I show you this function ya ku-add numbers, vile inafanya, utakuja hapa uicall, then the function will be executed, alafu the output of the function ndio itapewa variable. But now the difference ukitumia an inline function is that instead of executing the function akaipeana hapa, itachukua tu okay, instead of executing the function, itachukua the code ya function yenyewe alafu iiweke hapa. So it will not execute, it will just fill in the code of the function iweke hapa. So an advantage ya inline functions ni ati inafanya, okay, it will do almost the same thing but it will be more optimized. So performance ya code yako ita run more faster. We don't use it out, but it's good to know that iko. Na I'll write up nini piece of code uone nini how fast it is. Let me chani copy, I have some. Yeah. So this is an inline function ya ku measure the time that is taken to call this function. Okay, don't worry about the syntax. In syntax iko mbele, I will explain but hapo mbele. So tunaweza run hii function and it was able to calculate the sum. Now the time will take me 11 milliseconds. But if it's an inline function, sababu tumetumia the inline keyword mbele ya jina function. But if tulikuwa tuitoe tuirudishe ikuwe a normal function, not the time 11 milliseconds, but if we run it again, imechukua 7 milliseconds. Yeah, so ina improve performance yake by copying the function wherever it is called. So tumecall the function na measure time hapa, alafu ikaicopy, then it is run. Kuna swali? Okay. So for this one, the higher order functions in lambdas. Before tuanze, I will nini nataka kuspecify that this section sana sana it apply kwa watu wa nini Kotlin for mobile development. So when you are writing Android code with Kotlin, sana sana tunatumianga higher order functions and this thing we call lambdas. So I will explain what it is. So higher order functions, these are functions that take another function. Okay, it's a function inaweza take another function as an argument. Now it can also return another function. So you see here hapa tulisema hizi arguments, these are strings, but to make it to be a higher order function, this function it can take another function as an argument hapa hivi, and also it can return a function. So higher order function, these are functions that takes another function as a parameter, and they can also return a function. So in short, it's a function that works with another function. Then a lambda, this is like the syntax. It's a way for writing a function without giving a name. So tukirudi hapa hivi, we have this function ya kumeasure time. This function is a higher order function. This function inaweza take another function as an argument. So the function inaitwa action. Na how to specify that this is a function, unapeananga brackets na ina return unit. So then after that kuna the lambda. Hii tumesema inafanya ikuwe much easier. You're creating the implementation ya function without even writing the name. So this is a complex example, ni ngumu kuelewa, so acha niandike function nyingine ya kucalculate. So tuseme ni function ya kucalculate na it will take two variables, a integer and another variable b as an integer. So in a normal way vile ilikuwa tunafanya, if this function ilikuwa calculate, ilikuwa fixed that it will only do kenye iko ndani yake, but tunaweza pass another function, another argument hapa. Now this will be a function yenye iko na the operation. It's an operation, and kwa hizi brackets inasema this operation itachukua tu hizi variables a na b, na a na b ni integer, itachukua an integer and another integer, and it will return an integer. So now tutasema that this function will return the operation function na tuipe the two variables a and b. Yeah, now to specify the return type ya hii function ya nje ni integer. So now tukicall the calculate function, tunasema the first variable ita calculate the sum, which is equals to calculate alafu the sum of 5 and 5, and now we hii tumepeana hii function inaitwa operation, but hatujaiandika anywhere. Now ndio tuweze kuandika implementation ya hii operation, we use lambdas. Lambdas ni badala ya kupea the function name, hapa vile tumepea function name, badala ya kupea the function name tuandika two brackets, hizi curly brackets, alafu sasa tuandike the operation. Na since umeona this operation inachukua two values a and b, so the first thing utafanya ni ku read those values. So utasema a and b utaziread, alafu you use the arrow, so this line alafu arrow. So inamaanisha that this function ina expect two parameters, that is a and b, and then now after that tuandike the actual code itself. so ita return a plus b, that is the calculation. Then variable ya kufanya product kwa calculate 5 and the same thing, itachukua the two variables a and b, and also now the implementation yake itakuwa a times b. Now you can print it. Yeah, so this function is capable to perform two different operations because now we have it's a higher order function because inachukua another function as an argument. And how to pass that function as an argument, you are using a lambda. A lambda ni kuandika function without giving it a name. So maybe no ikuwe much easy if I was to do this without using lambdas, ingebidi tumeandika operation yake. Let me copy. So ingebidi nimeandika function ya kuadd, tuseme tena inachukua a which is an integer, then b is an integer, then it will also return an integer. We'll have to return a plus b. Then naweza futa hiyo alafu niseme add. So hata haiwork in fact. Already gonna error. Yeah. The only way to do it ni kutumia the lambda yenyewe. Unless kwa mtu anajua kufanya. So the only way to do it ni kutumia the na it's much cleaner because nilika tu implementation hapo hivi na iwaka. Now the thing ikiwa hivi, it's not readable sana sana, mtu anaweza angalia alafu it can be easily confusing. Sasa kuna another concept tunaitanga the lambda syntax. Okay, I call it the trailing lambda syntax. So here we're using the same code too. Here inakuanga requirement ukiandika the higher order function, that is the calculate. Now if it takes a function as an argument, make sure that function itakuwa the last parameter, na ndio imekuwa ya mwisho hapa hivi. The function is the last parameter, that's a requirement. Then ikiwa hivyo ndio unaweza sema this lambda instead of kuweka hapa ndani unaweza itoa nje and it will work. So itakuwa calculate, now you pass the two values 5 and 5, and then now the last function hii yenye itakuwa passed hapa ndani, instead of kuandika hapa ndani sababu inakaa confusing, unaweza itoa nje. This is now the trailing lambda syntax. Unaitoa tu nje and it will do the same thing. At least hii inakaa much cleaner na unaweza elewa. Kuna swali hapo. I think this is more advanced. Hawezi kukosa swali. Anyone? So mko sawa? Okay. So hii inakuanga more important because ukitumia Jetpack Compose, Android application inatumianga these functions, these higher order functions na the lambda syntax, the trailing lambda syntax. So sana sana utakuwa unakuta functions zinakaa hivi, composable zako zinakaa hivi, and now this is the logic behind it. Okay, tumepitia. Another thing ni to make your work easier, if function yako iko na only one parameter, you don't have to list them hapa hivi vile tumelist hivi. So I'll write another one. So maybe niko na a list. A list of names. Now I want to convert these names zikuwe uppercase, zikuwe capital yani. So kwa this type ya itangaje, this list type iko na a higher order method inaitwa, okay, iko na method inaitwa map. So ni names alafu iko na inaitwa map, and this map inachukuanga this inaweza chukua a function. Na this one, since tumesema we are using the trailing lambda syntax, tutaifanya tu hivyo. So tutaandika tu brackets alafu tuseme, okay, let me write it the normal way alafu ni explain ngepona kufanya. Tuseme ni name. So the map vile itafanya itachukua alafu ifanye ni kama for loop, itarudia through each value in the list. So tuseme ichukue name, and then now itakuwa ni name dot to uppercase. And then if you print it, yeah, we'll convert hizi jina to uppercase. But what I was saying, instead of specify the arguments hapa hivi, another thing, if kwa lambda syntax, if your function ina take only one argument, kama hii inachukua only the name, you don't have to do kuandika hiyo nini yote, una cancel alafu utatumia the keyword each. So each itachukua the current parameter yenye itakuwa passed to this function. So with each itafanya to the same thing, but imekurudishia the amount of code unaandika. Okay. It's getting hot ama sawa bado? Oh yeah, naona swali. Yeah, tutatuma notes. In fact, share link last week. Hizi vitu zote ziko hapo, but acha nitaituma tu tena. Nilikuwa nimezicombine into one document. Nitazituma tena. The last tutapitia ni extension function. So kazi extension function inakusaidia add more capability ama functionality to already existing types in the Kotlin language. So existing types ni kama the string ama integer ama list or tutafika time ya kufanya OOP pia classes zako unaweza tumia extension function ku add more functionality to your classes, but since hatujasoma OOP nitatumia the existing one, hizi ni strings. So maybe you can say that kwa the function ya string, the string type tuta add another functionality maybe ya ku add exclamation, as in kwa any string yenye utapeana uta add an exclamation point mwisho yake, then ita return the string type, ita return this alafu exclamation point. Wacha niandike the other piece of code then I explain this keyword inamaanisha nini. So tunasema variable ya greeting itakuwa hi, and greeting is a string, so tulikuja ku print so tukiprint normally ita print greeting peke yake, but if you are to call the extension function, the exclamation, so ita print hi niongezee the exclamation huko mwisho. So for the add exclamation, this keyword inamaanisha ita access the value ya the object yenye umecreate. So tumecreate this object na nini hi, so ita access hiyo value hi, so itachukua sasa ita return hi alafu plus the hiyo keyword. So basically advantage yako ni give more capabilities to existing functions without rewriting the code ama bila kuguza yenye ina implement this string. So sana sana extension function itakuwa usable sana sana mkinini time tutafika OOP tukilearn about classes. So another example of maybe a real world example yenye unaweza tumia same function alafu ni string alafu tuseme ina an extension function yake ni kuvalidate if email, so itachukua string alafu validate if this function is an email, then we return a boolean, ita return true ama false. So itachukua uta return tumia this keyword to access to the object tumesema hii value this keyword alafu tuseme to check if it contains, hizi ni existing functions za Kotlin, si lazima uzikumbuke but unaweza check. So tuseme if it contains an at, emails zinakuanga na at and if it also contains a dot in the string. Sijui mbona nimekosea the type. Oh, ni boolean. So itakuja iangalie if it contains at and if it also contains a dot then ita return true. Na kama hai contain any of these ita return false. So tutasema variable email is equals to then to print email now dot validate if email. So ita print true because iko na the at keyword na iko na a dot hapo, but tuseme tutoe a dot, tutoe hiyo dot moja, itakuwa false because hai contain the dot, na pia tutoe the at keyword, itakuwa false. So tume add functional the string. Now it is able to validate if the string imepeanwa, if it is an email or not. Yeah. Oh, part ya 8. Kwa okay. So iko hapa hivi, tumesema if your nini lambda, hii function yako, if ina take only one argument, then you can use the it instead of kuandika maybe kitu kama name. So if function inachukua only one argument, which is the name, and then now the code block to be run, if functionality itachukua the variable name argument yenye imepasiwa, alafu convert to uppercase. Tukirun obviously ita work, but since kuna an easier way to do it, na tumesema tunatumia the it keyword, that is the easy way to do it, but iko limited if only your function ina take only one argument. So itakuwa it dot uppercase na itarun, but kama hii iko hapa juu unaona iko na two argument, so hatuwezi tumia the it. Hii ni vile ilikuwa nachukua only one argument, ndio natumia it keyword. Kuna swali lingine? Yeah, so mkiona tumeanza kuingia into more advanced concepts, so si basics, si ngumu, but ukipractice more utakuwa tu sawa, na it's good to understand the basics sababu huwa zina apply to each and every language. So ntu syntax ina changing, but the concept usually is the same. So kuna swali lingine? Nimeshare link to the notebook yenye iko na explanation ya what tumepitia and even more examples. So if you want to go through it, utaipata tu hapo. Okay, I think mi nimemaliza. That is all I had for today. That was functions. Basically tumecover everything about functions in Kotlin. So if you have a question, unaweza uliza tu kwa group, tutakujibu hapo. If you need any help. Yeah. So thank you for joining. Tupatane next Monday. I think the next session itakuwa Monday. Have a good night.